The office was quiet, save for the soft hum of the fluorescent lights and the occasional rustle of paper. It was late, much later than usual, and the only sounds were those of typing and the faint creaking of the floorboards as footsteps echoed down the hall. In his cubicle, John leaned back in his chair, stretching his arms above his head. The day had been long, but it was finally coming to an end. He glanced at the clock on his computer screen, 10:30 p.m., time to call it a night. As he gathered his things, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out and saw a text from an unknown number. "Can you come over? I need to talk to you." He frowned, trying to place the number, but before he could respond, another message appeared. "It's urgent, please." The tone was desperate, and something about the urgency made his heart race. He typed back, "Who is this?" But there was no reply. Instead, the phone rang, startling him. He hesitated for a moment before answering. "Hello? John, it's Emily," the voice on the other end whispered, barely audible. "I need your help. Can you come over?" His heart skipped a beat. Emily was his boss's wife, a woman he had secretly admired from afar for years. They had shared a few moments of intimacy, moments that had left him both exhilarated and guilty, but they had kept their relationship hidden, knowing the consequences if it ever came to light. "Emily, what's going on? Is everything okay?" he asked, concern lacing his words. "No, it's not," she replied, her voice trembling. "My husband, he found out." John's stomach twisted into knots. "Found out about what?" There was a pause, filled with unspoken tension. About us, and the baby." The words hit him like a truck, leaving him breathless. "The baby?" he repeated, voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," she said, the tears evident in her voice. "He knows, and he's furious. I don't know what to do." John felt a wave of nausea wash over him. This was worse than he had imagined. The secret they had tried so hard to keep had exploded in their faces, and now they were facing the fallout. "Where are you?" he asked, his mind racing. "At home. Please, John, come quick." "I'm on my way," he assured her, already gathering his coat and keys. "I'll be there soon." The drive to Emily's house was a blur. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions, fear, anxiety, guilt, and an overwhelming sense of protectiveness. He couldn't let anything happen to her, not after everything they had shared. As he pulled into the driveway, he noticed the lights were still on inside, casting a warm glow against the cold night. He took a deep breath and stepped out of the car, making his way to the front door. He knocked softly, but there was no answer. He tried the handle, and the door clicked open. The house was eerily quiet, but he could hear faint voices coming from the living room. He crept closer, his heart pounding in his chest. As he rounded the corner, he saw Emily standing in the middle of the room, her face pale and tear-streaked. Across from her stood her husband, David, his eyes filled with a mix of rage and disbelief. "You think I'm just going to let this go?" David's voice boomed, echoing through the room. "You thought you could lie to me and get away with it?" "David, please," Emily pleaded, her voice weak. "I never meant for this to happen." David's gaze shifted, catching sight of John standing in the doorway. "Get out here," he shouted, pointing at John. "This is between me and my wife." John swallowed hard, stepping into the room. "David, I can explain." "Shut up," David roared, advancing towards John. "You think you can just waltz in here and take what's mine? You think I'm some kind of fool?" The tension in the room was palpable, thick and suffocating. John could feel the weight of David's anger bearing down on him, and he knew he had to tread carefully. "David, listen to me," he began, trying to keep his voice steady. "This isn't what it looks like." "Isn't it?" David spat, his eyes narrowing. "You think I'm blind? You think I didn't see the way you looked at her? The way you touched her?" Emily's breathing was shallow, her body trembling. "David, please, we didn't mean for this to happen. It just happened." David's gaze shifted back to Emily, his expression softening slightly, though the anger still simmered beneath the surface. "Why, Emily, why would you do this to us?" Her voice was barely audible. choked with tears. I don't know. I don't have an excuse. I fell for him. David. I fell for John. David's fists clenched at his sides, his jaw tight with restrained fury. And you expect me to just forgive and forget? You expect me to just accept this child as my own? No, Emily whispered, shaking her head. I don't expect that. I need you to understand. John stepped forward, placing a hand on Emily's shoulder. David, I know this is hard to hear, but we need to figure out what's best for everyone. For you, for Emily, and for the baby. David's eyes flicked to John's hand on Emily's shoulder, and the anger returned tenfold. Don't you dare touch her, he snarled, moving closer. You lost that right the moment you betrayed me. John removed his hand, holding it up in surrender. I'm not trying to make this worse, David. I'm just trying to help. David laughed bitterly. Help? You think you can help? You think you can fix this? Emily's voice was small, almost pleading. David, please, let's talk about this. Let's find a way to move forward. David's eyes softened again, but only slightly. Move forward? With you and him? With this child that's not mine? I don't know, Emily admitted, her voice breaking. I just want to make things right. David took a step back, running a hand through his hair. I need time to think, he said quietly. I need time to process all of this. John nodded, sensing an opportunity. Take all the time you need. David, we're not going anywhere. David shot one last glare at John before turning his attention back to Emily. Stay away from him, he warned, his voice low and dangerous. I need space. Don't push me, Emily. With that, he stormed out of the room, leaving Emily and John alone. Emily collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands as she sobbed. John knelt beside her, gently rubbing her back. It's going to be okay, he whispered, though he wasn't sure if he believed it himself. She looked up at him, her eyes red and swollen. How can it be okay, John? He didn't have an answer. All he could do was hold her, feeling the weight of their predicament pressing down on them both.